Hey folks, welcome to Bear Mountain today. We're working on a bit of an experiment. One of the things we do for our vegetable garden is we use a lot of purchased compost, and most of it's urban waste compost, and it's used for um, basically a surface mulch. And so one of the things that we have on our property is an abundance of grass that mostly we just use for hay, and then we'll use it for some mulches around some other beds, but not necessarily in the vegetable garden itself. We've kind of shied away from trying to use grass as a mulch in the vegetable garden because our concern about slugs. But on the flip side, we've really got more concern now about, well, the quality of the compost and whether we have any kind of herbicides that are coming in on the possible contamination that comes with purchased compost. So we're trying to do two things. We're trying to figure out a way to utilize grass, what stage to cut it at that would maybe make a good mulch, time of the year that we apply it so we get good weed suppression, and then trying to figure out um, methods of dealing with slugs, because I think that's going to be an inevitable as the climate moves to fall and winter. We get wet and we get cool, and it's perfect for slugs. But here we are right now, right around the beginning of September, and our fields are pretty dry. You can see behind me, it's pretty much dry, 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 dry. Nothing really regrew. We've had a really pretty good drought this summer. We haven't had much of any rain at all. And so there are a few spots where I've got some green grass that's growing, and it's basically from a tiled area as outfall. And it was the kind of the last grass in the place to not go brown and dormant. So I'm going to be cutting some of that with a scythe today and use that to try to mulch some test beds up in the garden to see how we do. So I want to show you guys what this kind of looks like. So this is what we're talking about. As you can see, it's just kind of a little patch of green, and it's following along a drainage outfall. And but the nice thing about this is it won't really have much seed in it. There are some wild weeds in it that I'm not going to be too worried about, but most of it is just green grass. So that's what we're going to be using to cut green and put it on the beds itself. So you may be wondering, why are we using a scythe instead of the mower? I mean, a mower would be fast. We could just zip over it and grind it up and, haul it off. Because two things. First, that's exactly why we don't want to do it, is because we don't want the material ground or pulverized or smashed. It will tend to mat down easier, go anaerobic easier, and when it does dry out, it won't last as long. What we're looking for is that idea of longer grass blades that dry eventually, and they kind of form kind of a mat, and so they'll be better for weed suppression. It's kind of the same idea of mulching with hay would last longer than mulching with green grass that you cut right off the yard. There's nothing wrong with using, the mowed grass, but what we're going for here is something that is longer lasting. And so the idea is we want this to kind of cure in place on the bed as we go into fall, and not just decompose rapidly and disappear. So we're going to use our basic scythe. This is we're using the ditch blade today. Just got this all peened up, so we want to make certain that we get this all nice and toned. So what we're going to do is cut the area behind me here and fill up a cartload. We figured it'll take about 8 cubic feet of cut grass to do one of our 9-foot beds. So we'll get at it. should do it. We got about looks like about a 15-foot windrow. That'll give us about one 8 cubic foot cartload, and I think we should be ready to go. It's a good exercise, especially on a day like today where we're a bit overcast and everything seems to be in pretty good shape. Grass isn't too dry, and it cut pretty good considering a lot of it was lodged over. So let's get it picked up and up the hill. Okay, we got a pretty full load. Got the rake in here. This grass is actually in really good shape. I mean, there's a little brown in it, but it's mostly really green, it's kind of a coarse grass, so I think it should dry out nice as almost like a straw. So we'll just get this up the hill and put it on the gardens. We'll talk about what we're doing up there. Okay, so here's the bed we're going to apply the grass mulch to. This has been treated 4 times with JMS and a JLF as a typical Jadam pre-treat. And you can see that the soil is actually really in good shape. Okay, but I'm not going to be able to plant for at least another 7 days into this bed. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I don't get any extra weed germination, and I want to be able to put the grass on there to be weed suppressing, and also to kind of carry it through the fall so we don't get a flush of fall weeds growing in the bed as well. So we're going to put the grass on just like we did on this bed over here. If you notice this one, so these are the 2 bed test beds we're going to do. We're going to put kale in this guy, and then we're going to probably put a mixture of spring onions and some cold crops like kohlrabi in this bed here. So I'm going to stay away from putting lettuce in the mulch beds at this point until I kind of understand the dynamics and how things are going to go. So both these beds are going to look basically just like this. This has got about probably 3 inches of the fresh cut grass on top, and that'll be the same thing on this guy over here. So we're going to be planting them in about, well, like I said, about a week or so. The JMS was just put on last night, so typically we put that on at a dilution rate when there's no plants on the ground of a 1 to 10 dilution, and the JLF was a 1 to 200 dilution. So I'm thinking the biology um, will be kind of stabilized by the time we're ready to plant. And also too, the grass will help keep the UV from beating up the microbes too much, at least on the surface, and kind of give things kind of keeping an even moisture during this whole period of time. So that's kind of our key of what we're trying to accomplish. So next step is we take the drip lines off, pull them back so we can put them back on top, put the grass on, and then we're going to wet it down again really well. Okay, so we've got the mulch on and we put the drip lines back down. Now the last thing we're going to do is just kind of wet it down. So you can see it's covered pretty good. It's got about 3 inches on top. I know it doesn't look like that, but trust me, it's about that. And we're going to wet it down real good, and then we'll plant into it in about a week. So we'll see how it goes from that point. So from that perspective, this is a new experiment. We'll see how bad the slugs really are with grass. Grass should have a chance to dry out pretty well, and the grass interface between the soil should be pretty well on its way to rotting by the time we get into the wet season. For us, the real wet season kind of really takes off the end of October and into November. We'll get a few rain showers and maybe a storm or two in between now, which is about the beginning of September, and early November. But for the most part, we'll stay warm, so the biology should still be kicking up. And like I said, we'll be about 7 to 10 days, and we'll plant our cole crops in these guys, and also some spring onions in there to see how they do. So thanks again for coming along with us, and appreciate you guys watching, and stay safe out there. Things are crazy, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.